Time now for The Real Estate Connection with Stephen Theard, a realtor and certified probate and real estate specialist. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer or a seasoned investor looking to downsize, move up, or refinance, this program is for you.
A house in the middle of our street. Something tells you that you've got to move in the middle of our...
From probate sales to landscape design to home repairs and maintenance, this is your weekly look into all things real estate. Now your host for The Real Estate Connection, Stephen Theard.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Real Estate Connection, brought to you by Good Patriot Realty, a salute to home ownership. Well, here we are, folks. We're on the other side of it. Nobody knew it was going to happen, but it was exciting. What a wild ride. I can't believe it. We made it. We're here. We're on the other side of the 2024 presidential election in the United States of America. That's right. It was a well-fought, hard-fought battle, and there were two candidates that were pulling and fighting hard. But there can only be one winner in every election, and after that election is over, sometimes there's change and sometimes there's not. In this case, there's definitely going to be change in Washington, D.C. and lots of states throughout the country. So what are we going to do? What we always do. We're going to talk about real estate, and we're going to talk about real estate and what effect the results of the 2024 election could have on the real estate market and you, the potential owner, seller, buyer, real estate investor, holder of real estate, or just curious person wanting to know about real estate. And speaking of curious, if you're curious about this podcast and want to see it and not miss it or hear about it, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and give us a review. We love reading the reviews, and a thumbs up if you're listening or watching on YouTube. Let's get the algorithms working in our favor so that this show can be spread far and wide throughout the United States of America, and especially in California where I live. And if you couldn't tell by how I'm dressed today, it is a wee bit chilly as we have a cold front moving in down from what I think is coming cold air from Alaska. But I digress. Oh, also, if you are looking to do any type of real estate transaction, whether you're buying for the first time or you're looking to sell and move up or move down based on some of the reasons we will be discussing in today's show, give me Stephen Theard a call at 408-472-0817. Contact us at Good Patriot Realty, a salute to home ownership, so that we can help you make your American dream come true, because that's what it's all about. The attaining of the American dream of home ownership and the building of generational wealth. And we want that for you. All right, without any further ado, the election's over. We made it. All right. Okay, and so now we're on the other side. There is going to be new leadership in Washington, D.C., and there will be new approaches to fiscal policy and the economy. It's a total shift from what the last administration was up to, because the philosophical and ideological differences are like night and day. So you know change is on the horizon. But how will that affect the real estate market? Well, let's talk about what we know right now first. And I'm going to address specifically my home state of California, because I know it well, because it's where I live and where I do business every day. Will this have some sort of gradual effect in all the other states as well? Yes, but specifically for California and all those other high cost of living states where real estate is expensive and the cost to get in generally you probably could draw a lot of correlations between California and states like New York or around Washington, D.C., where there's always, and I mean always, money flowing, or states what's another high cost of living area like Connecticut, things outside the Beltway, New York. That's right, New York. That's another state that costs a lot of money to live and move into because there's limited supply and heavy demand. New York City especially. So what do we know right now for California? Interest rates have not dropped as low as we were hoping by the end of 2024. At the beginning of this year, there was a lot of high hopes. I remember it started off, I got shot out of a cannon. My telephone was ringing off the hook. People were looking to sell and buy and do all this stuff just on the rumor that the Federal Reserve was going to have a policy of cutting interest rates this year. And you know what they did? They teased us. That's right. They certainly did. They said, oh, we're going to cut rates. We promise. And then like Lucy and Charlie Brown with the football. Come on, Charlie Brown, kick this thing. Charlie Brown comes running down the field and boop, Lucy pulls the football right out from underneath them and we go flying in the air. And that's exactly what the Federal Reserve did to us. Did they drop interest rates like they told us they were going to do? No, they didn't. They held off for a very, very long time. I know that the Fed cut doesn't exactly translate to how the market works, but it's an indicator, right? So interest rates did not come down. They came down a little bit during the middle of this year and towards the beginning of fall, but they have shot right back up again. Not as high as they were during the peak of the last 4 years, but they are not as low as what we had projected. Rates are still hovering around 7%. However, the good news is rates are historically, over the last 25, 30 years since they've been tracking interest rates, on average around 6%. So are we totally out of whack? No, we are not totally out of whack, but they are still a lot higher than what they were 4 years ago, which was historically low. But didn't we like those historical low interest rates? Didn't we like that? I'm going to give a round of applause for 3%, 3.5%, 2.75 30-year fixed, right? When everybody was happy and running around buying houses. It was beautiful. And what happened? Somebody turned the water off and you're no longer available. And we're dealing with these interest rates at the high sixes, touching 7 from time to time. Woo! All right. So the other issue is prices have not come down and are not expected to come down. Now, when interest rates went skyrocketing, everybody thought we were going to have a market crash and all these foreclosures were going to hit. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. And you want to know why it didn't happen? Because 3%, 3%, 3%. That's why it didn't happen. All the smart money refinanced their homes during those times of really low interest rates. So what happens if you bought a house and you had a loan for $700,000 and it was somewhere around 5.5 or 5%, and you refinance that bad boy down to 2.5, 2.75, 3%, your mortgage payment came down. So even with inflation going up and the cost of living going up, you could still afford that mortgage payment. And you had equity, because when people were buying houses, when those interest rates were low, what was the story? What was the complaint by all the buyers out there in the market? I'm getting beat out because somebody's writing a check for the house. They're paying all cash. I can't compete with that. Or they're bidding it up $150,000, $200,000, and they're putting 50% down. What is all cash and 50% down equate to? Equity. People have skin in the game. Unlike the last housing bubble that went bust in 05 and 06, there was no skin in the game. People were walking away from basically renting because they didn't have any money invested in the property, and so they just walked away and let the house go into foreclosure. If you have $1 million in cash invested in your home, are you going to walk away? No, you're not going to walk away. You'll let your car go before you let the house go. You'll even let the credit cards go before you let the house go, because we're talking about $500,000 to $1 million in cash money, and you are not walking away from that. So the foreclosure market never materialized. That's right, because people kept their houses because the payments were lower, and even though inflation went up, they still had enough disposable income to cover their mortgages. All right. Now, with that being said, though, not as many buyers are in the market right now because interest rates are higher. Now, when I just mentioned that whole statistic of over the last 25, 30 years that they've been tracking interest rates as a whole, and 6% is kind of in the ballpark. Well, let's be real about this, right? 6% of 350,000 is a lot different from 6% of $1 million home, right? So if you're going back years, a couple of decades, and you're looking at the cost of housing and what it costs to purchase a house in the Bay Area or in California, even though it was around 6%, 5.5%, even 6.5%, the amount of money that you were borrowing was considerably lower, right? And the value of a dollar was higher. So now it takes a lot more dollars to buy, and the value of the dollar is decreasing, but still 6% on $1 million home loan is a lot of money. And that has outpaced earning. So what does that do? That causes less buyers to be in the market. However, what's the key to all of this that keeps home values still increasing, which is the next point? Home values in California are still going up. You have less buyers in the marketplace. You have higher interest rates that are historically high for the cost that it takes for you to buy a house, and yet values are still going up. You're like, Steven, how does that work? How does that work? It doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to tell you how it works. Inventory. There's not enough houses to purchase out there. There just isn't enough housing to purchase. California is behind, I would say 35% of what they should be building annually. And this has been going on for years and years. So if you could picture back in the 80s that housing starts start to decrease, but the number of people moving into California is still going up. So we have an increase in population. Housing is not being built at the pace that it needs to be kept at in order to meet the supply. And people keep moving here. And it's year after 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 year. What does that mean? That means that you don't have enough inventory to satisfy the demand for the amount of people that live in the state, despite the fact that interest rates are high and it's much tougher to get into the market. Meaning it's the whole apples and oranges theory. No, well, not apples and oranges, apples and apples. Okay, so if you have one apple and you have 100 people that want to buy that one apple, what's going to happen to the cost of that apple? The price is going to go up because demand is higher than supply. And this is a classic supply and demand issue. And on top of them not building enough housing in California, we have the issue of 3%, 3%, 3%, 3%, meaning that people have refinanced 30-year fixed mortgages into 3%, 2.75%, 2.5%, 3.25%. They're low. So if you're a homeowner and you're saying, man, I want to buy a new house, I don't like where I'm living, let's look for another property, and you go out and start looking and then start doing the math on how much your new mortgage payment is going to be on a bigger, more expensive home, that might stop you dead in your tracks. So what happens? You don't have enough people putting their homes on the market for resale. So you don't have enough builders, you don't have enough resale property, and what's that do? It contracts, it shrinks the supply, and your demand is still going up. Why? Because buyers have adjusted to the higher interest rates, and they're still out there buying homes. So we have an issue. All right. Now, I will tell buyers, all right, this is what I know. We're still talking about what we know. This is all market in California. There are a lot of buyers out there that are saying, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for interest rates to come down. I'm going to wait. 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 The problem with waiting is that the value of homes in California are still rising, which means the longer you wait, the more expensive the house gets. The issue is, can you outpace your earning and savings more than the cost of purchasing a home? And what can happen to you inadvertently is that you could wind up getting priced out of the market because you can't keep up with your income and saving for a down payment with how quickly the housing market is going up in value. Now, this is at a time when interest rates are high. Can you imagine what'll happen if rates drop to 5%? Then, when rates are at 5%, you have a flood of more buyers coming into the market that are qualified to buy. And not only are you dealing with increased home values over time, but now you have increased competition in the marketplace. And we're back to the complaints that we had back in 2019 and 18 and 20, when people were saying, there's too much competition. I'm getting outbid on all these houses and I can't keep up. So in California, waiting is never good. If you can get into a house, get into a house. So what do we know also? It's winter. And winter generally is a better time to buy if you have been on the fence, to get off the fence and buy a home, because there's less competition because people are busy. Kids are in school, so you take the families off the table. They don't want to move during the wintertime and change schools in the middle of the school year. And so you have less buyers in the market. You have sellers who are selling normally because there's a really good reason. If there's a strong motivation to change geography. And so they're trying to get their house sold because the reason for their move is bigger than the amount of money that they're trying to squeeze out of the property. So in this instance, it may be like, hey, Sam, you've been working great for the company. You've been doing fantastic work, and that dream job you've been waiting for is available. And it's coming with a massive promotion. But we need to move you from California to Dallas, Texas. And you go to your wife and you tell her, hey, I got the promotion. They're going to move me. We're getting all this extra money. It's my dream job. I've been talking about it for years. And the wife's like, yeah, let's do it. Dallas is cheaper and you're going to be making more and more money. We can go on more vacations, blah, 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 blah. Boom, you're out, right? You're like, I just need to get this house sold so I can move, right? The winter time, good time to buy if you've been sitting around waiting. Sellers are more serious. And then you get in now, and then you take advantage of what? 2025, the spring of 2025. What happens in the spring of 2025? Sellers hit the market hard. Buyers hit the market hard. What happens when buyers and sellers come together, when there's a lot of activity in the market and there's still not a lot of supply? Prices go up. So you bought in the winter of 2024, and then you can ride the equity wave of the spring of 2025. Call me. I know you're thinking about it. Call me. Let's do this thing. Let's get you into the American dream, into home ownership, so you can ride that equity wave in the spring of 2025. Let's do it. 408-472-0817. 408-472-0817. Call me. Let's go. All right. So what else do we know? Market dynamics right now. In California, inventory is up, but California as a state is still well behind in home construction for our population size. Now, I gave the ghost away in the prior section, and I should have held myself back. Bad self-control on my part, Stephen. Bad self-control. But we're going to talk about it again just a little bit, right? California's not building enough homes. They just aren't. And there's also something called open space, the Open Space Authority. When land gets added to open space, from what I understand, it can't come out. It stays open space, which means you can't build on it. So there's a finite supply of housing, right? Because if you're not aware, every municipality, county, city has a general plan, and they've zoned out all the land within their jurisdiction for specific uses. So you have a portion that's zoned commercial. You have a portion zoned agricultural. You have a portion zoned, hotels and apartments. And then you have a portion zoned condominiums and townhouses and a portion zoned residential. And within that, you're going to have your high end residential, your mid range, and your low range. But this creates artificial limited supply, man made, because man has gone in by the power that they have as elected people within municipalities and jurisdictions to say, we're going to carve out our land in this way. And so you can only live here. Well, there's already a finite supply of land. They're not making any more. You have one earth, one circle, and there's only so much land to be had. Some of it's covered in ice, not inhabitable. Some of it's high on top of mountains, not inhabitable. Some of it's in deserts, not inhabitable, except for Vegas. That's the weird one, right? And Dubai. Come on. All right, the Arabs got us, right? They have so much money they can just truck in the water, okay? But for the normal folks, right, we're not living in the top of mountains or deserts, right? There are some hill people that I know that like living up in the Los Gatos Mountains, and I give you credit. You guys are tough. You're tough. It's rough up there. All right, but there's not enough inventory. Now, even with the population sizes leveling off in this state, because there are people that are starting to leave California for various reasons, most of it relates to cost of living. So we're not rising anymore. There's still not enough supply. And there is, though, inventory is starting to go up just a little bit because it's taking a little bit longer to sell, which means there's more choices. However, the reason inventory is still cranking, right? It's not where it should be, but it's still available are for the following reasons. And we touched on this a little bit when we first got started in the podcast, but homes are coming on the market because of necessity, right? There are still births. So if you were a first-time home buyer, say back in 2020, it's now been 5 years. Maybe you are 2 kids deep now, right? And you had a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, and now you have 2 children, and that condo's looking and feeling really small right now. You're thinking, hey, honey, I know interest rates are high, but we need some space. We need to figure this out. It's time to get out of here and buy a house. All right, then you have deaths. Unfortunately, with births, you have deaths. The circle of life. We keep on cranking, right? Everybody's turn comes and goes. But when people pass away or die, the family will inherit a house. And a lot of times people want to squeeze the juice out of the berry. They want the cash out of that house. So what are they going to do? They're going to sell it. And then they're going to divide the cash out to the heirs. Divorces, unfortunate. Relationships have issues and problems and people break up. And oftentimes, especially in a state like California, you need 2 people to maintain a household or maintain the house payment because, you've grown and you have 2 incomes and you've taken on a mortgage based on, a family, a husband and wife being together in a household. And when that breaks apart, the financial situation causes the house to have to be sold because it can no longer be held by one individual because it's too expensive. Then you have marriages. Good news. You have marriages. The combination of households, right? The combination of 2 incomes, and people want to live in their own space together as a family unit, as a couple. And so you also have job changes, which we touched on. Sam got that promotion, and he's headed to Dallas, Texas, to have that dream job with that higher income, and his wife is all for it. Let's go. All right. And then you also have retirees and downsizing, right? So you've owned 3 acres and you have horses and goats and sheep, and your kids are all grown. They've moved on. They've been out of the house for a while. Now they're having kids, and you're somewhere in your mid 60s, heading into your 70s. And that 2 acres is getting to be a monster to take care of, or that 3 acres. You don't have the animals anymore, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I got a lot of equity piled up in this property. I'm looking to kind of relax a little bit in my golden years and maybe travel or downsize and have a smaller place to take care of and pass it along to the next generation. And so you do have houses coming on the market due to downsizing. So there's still the market's still being driven. A long story for that, right? Um, Now, for buyers, right? I've said don't wait, right? Do not wait because the housing values are still going up. But the same story is true for home sellers. Don't wait. Don't wait. If you are in that 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo and you're looking at that interest rate and you're going, it's too high, we can't do it. Well, don't let the interest rate be the driver because housing values are still rising. So if you can make the move and you can struggle with the rate for a little while and you can get into that house, you're going to be like the guy or the gal or the couple who bought the house in the wintertime and rode that equity train in the spring. Hey, let's get it done. Call me. Get it on the market now. Take advantage. There's buyers out there. And then get into a house while there aren't a lot of buyers out there as well. And get into the next property and give yourself some elbow room. Stretch out a little bit. Give yourself some air and make the move and get into that bigger property or downsize, because that replacement property is not going down in value over time. In California, generally speaking, that market is always going up. All right, for sellers, homes may not be selling as quickly, but they're still selling. So remember that too. It's not back in 2020 again when you put a house on the market and priced it right. You had multiple offers and it was gone in a week. It's going to take a little bit longer, but it will sell. Remember this principle, whether you're buying or selling. Well, if you're selling and buying, or if you're just buying, it was cheaper last year, but it will be more expensive next year. Keep that in mind. Even with the raised interest rates, it was cheaper last year, but it will be more expensive next year. All right, what else do we know? The Fed is poised for more rate reductions, as long as they don't do Lucy and the football on us again, right? So they cut it by, I think, 50 basis points, and I think they're going to cut it again. That's the plan. So hopefully that will help with interest rates. And interest rates are projected to decrease and hover around 6% for 2025. Now, we're hoping that that all happens. So what we've gone through is based on the election, what we do know, what we know for right now. So what don't we know? We don't know how new fiscal policy may affect interest rates. So we know that there's going to be a massive ideological change in how one administration addresses the economics of the country versus the next administration. So there's going to be change. And whenever there's sea changes, if you're a sailor and you're going from one ocean body to the next, it's rough waters. It gets shaky and things are all over the place. So my advice is expect the unexpected. Make plans based on what you know right now, but be flexible. Anything can happen in the next year because there will be a lot of changes coming out of the gate fast and in a hurry. What we don't also know is, will inflation decrease and provide more disposable income to be used towards housing? So if, say, for instance, the economic plans that they have planned actually work and work quickly and inflation comes down and there's more disposable income, kind of like the pandemic. Remember the pandemic? Everybody had a bunch of extra cash laying around because if you were still working, you couldn't spend it on anything. You weren't allowed to go anywhere. You were locked up in your house, couldn't go on vacation, couldn't do anything. So all this money was piling up and you had all this disposable income. People went and bought houses. That's just what they did. The housing market went through the roof. So if inflation drops and you have more disposable income, people could have more money for down payments, more money for mortgage payments for them. Even if the rates don't come down, you could have more money to spend on a mortgage and may bring more buyers into the market. And also the home improvement industry could take off if you have more disposable income. But we don't know what's going to happen. But these are guesses. All right. So if that does happen, we could have more buyers hit the market. And again, if we have more buyers hit the market, I can guarantee you that housing prices will go up, because when people are battling for a small quantity of something, it tends to drive prices up. So don't wait. Again, the mantra throughout this whole podcast has been do not wait, do not wait, do not wait. Interest rates may be high, but housing values in California are rising. And that would be true in other high value markets like New York, Washington, D.C. Okay. It's a supply and demand thing, it's basic economics. All right. Will new energy policies reduce fuel costs and the cost of building supplies? So housing could get less expensive, or builders could just start building more. And that could increase the supply, giving you more choices, which would be a wonderful thing. And then, will the economy respond negatively or poorly to change right away? Sometimes the system, when it gets shocked, it can lag, right? So it's kind of like anything else in life. When you face a shock, and it can just put you in a stupor for a little bit, and everything comes to a screeching halt until you kind of get your bearings or your feet underneath you again and start moving in a new direction. What we do know about physics is that something that is moving in one direction tends to want to keep continuing to go in that direction, and it takes a little bit of time for it to stop, especially the more momentum and the bigger it is. That's why it takes a lot to turn a really big ship, and it's easy to turn a small boat. All right. Will it take a few years for the planned economic changes to move the economy in what they hope to be a positive direction? Who knows? We don't know. It could be that the economy pulls back even more for a little while before it goes in a new direction, or it could just stay flat for a while, or it could take off. These are the unknowns that we don't know about fiscal policy that will be changing in the nation. And will interest rates really trend downwards, and by how much, due to fiscal policy changes that may be happening? So these are all the things that you need to be on the lookout for on the horizon. And as real estate professionals, we're doing the exact same thing. The difference is we're looking at market data and trends every day, and we see and feel the changes in the market before it actually hits the public, because we're in it every day. I oftentimes will be talking to my mom about articles that she's reading in the newspaper about real estate, and I tell her, hey, that's been going on for 6 months to a year already before the news is even writing about it, because we see it as it's happening. All right, so with all that being said, what's my advice to you? Back to basics. That's what I advise. Land is finite. They are not making any more of it. Remember that. It always is going to hold value. All right. And it's being limited by man as well. So it's not as if you can just walk out your front door and go say, hey, there's some land over there. I want to buy it. I want to build a house. Well, you got to get permission from the local jurisdiction that you're working in, right? And they may say, nah, you can't live there because we have that designated for office space or retail or commercial or warehouse or ag, right? Or open space. Or, yeah, you can, but you have to build a duplex because we have it designated for duplexes or apartments or single family homes that are attached or detached. So land is finite. And because of how we zone things, we make it even more finite, which means it's always going to hold value. The other basic, everyone needs a roof over their heads. And I know that there are homeless out there, but even those people have shelter. Everybody needs something over their head to protect them from the elements. Most people are going to be in the category in the bell curve in the center. They're either going to be buying or renting, right? So you have to choose, which one do you want to be, a buyer or a renter? Also, real estate moves slowly in upward and downward trends, okay? So even though you might be kind of nervous about real estate, once you're in, I guarantee you will not be nervous about real estate anymore. You won't be. As soon as you're in, you're going to be real estate, sis kumba, go, real estate, equity, housing prices, go up. When you're not in real estate, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. How are we going to get in? But as soon as you get in, you're going to be like all the other homeowners who are building generational wealth. They're going to be cheering on the market, and you're going to be a different person. You're going to be like, I don't want to pay any more property taxes. Don't raise my taxes on anything anymore. Let's make sure that we take care of our neighborhoods and our communities, because why? It affects your home. It affects housing value, and you don't want it going down. It's a motivator. So you want to be a homeowner. Homeowners have more generational wealth than renters. So you don't want to be a renter because you build generational wealth when you own a home. And remember, real estate is for the long term. You cannot think about real estate as far as, can I make 200 grand in 2 years? This is a long-term investment. It's a hold. It's a buy and hold. And it's more than just investing. It's a home. It's where you're putting down roots, memories of growing old with somebody or a family or whatever is happening in your life. You're creating long-term memories in a specific location. That's why real estate, location, 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 really important. Real estate recovers back to basics. All right. In 05 and 06, when the market crashed, I was part of that whole deal. Okay. I'm just going to tell you, I was in there. I was in it. I was affected by it. And I remember very vividly people saying, I'm never buying real estate again. It's the worst investment ever. All it does is blow up. I'm never, ever, ever doing it again. And I'm going to tell you something. Once it hit rock bottom and those foreclosures were all over the place and people were like, what? I can buy a house for how much in California? 350 grand? Boop. People were snatching them up. And that's what drove and fueled the recovery, was the sale of those bank-owned properties. People were getting in dirt cheap. And then people started talking, man, I just bought this house in San Jose. And before the crash, it was like $800,000 and I got it for $5. And then everybody wanted to do the same thing. And then the housing market, boom, took back off again. And what happened? It recovered and gone beyond, right? Finite supply. People need to live. California, people like the weather. There's jobs here. Housing recovers, so don't be scared. Get into the market, build the wealth, get your equity, pass it along. Tell your friends. And call me, 408-472-0817. Call me. All right. And you're going to pay to live somewhere. So you might as well pay your own mortgage rather than somebody else's. And then back to generational wealth. Hey, you're going to write a check once a month. It might as well be towards your own wealth. And then once you do it once, let's replicate it so you can have more and build wealth for your children and your children's children. And so the election's over. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. Things that we know, things that may change, and the basics. We've covered all three. We know that the supply is low, interest rates are high, but the market and the value of homes are still rising. So don't wait. The longer you wait, the more it's going to cost you to get in. Get in early, because the day you get in is the day you start building equity. As interest rates change, you can refinance, but get in. Don't try to time the market. That's just not wise. Inventory in California is always going to be low. It's just been that way for multiple years. And unless they start building houses at a breakneck pace, it's the way it's going to be. And so as interest rates do come down, it just is going to be more buyers coming into the market. There's all sorts of ideological changes that are going to happen. We're not sure how the markets are going to react to them all. What we do know is what we know now. And so plan accordingly, but be ready for change. Expect the unexpected. That's my advice. That's the advice I'm taking. I don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what policies are going to be enacted and when and how the market will be affected, what the rest of the world's going to do around the United States of America. So just keep your head on a swivel, keep your powder dry, and just watch. And if you see the opportunity, strike while the iron's hot and then hold. Because even if we hit turbulent times, remember 05 and 06, housing recovers. There's a finite supply. And then basics. Supply, a finite supply. Land always holds its value. It doesn't move up and down quickly. You will see the trend well before the train arrives at the station, and you can make plans accordingly. There hopefully will not be any surprises. And if there are, that's why they're called a surprise, because we're all shocked when it happens. So I'm going to leave you with this advice that I try to take, and I'm going to give to you. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. So, if you have any questions about your specific real estate needs, give Stephen Theard, myself, a call at Good Patriot Realty, 408-472-0817. Again, 408-472-0817. I'd be happy to talk about your specific fact pattern so that we can game plan for you. And God bless you. God bless the United States of America. And don't forget, you can find us on Apple Podcasts. Just look for Stephen Theard or the Real Estate Connection under the business section. iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Podbean. And we will see you next time on another episode of the Real Estate Connection, brought to you by Good Patriot Realty. A salute to home ownership.
This has been The Real Estate Connection with Realtor and Certified Probate and Real Estate Specialist Stephen Theard. Licensed Cal BRE number 0170019. For more information on this program, visit realestateconnectionradio.com. To contact Stephen directly, call 408-472-0817 or email info@realestateconnectionradio.com. And be sure to tune in next week at this time for The Real Estate Connection.